weeks after Meghan declared that Archie was too young to fly to Aberdeen, the 4-month-old baby and his parents boarded a British Airlines flight to South Africa. Well, they are on royal duty, so now they've got to, ride around like poor people on a British Airlines flight. Planning for the 10-day trip had started months earlier. At the outset, the palace considered that the Sussexes might live in South Africa to develop Harry's humanitarian program. Towards the end of the planning, that option had disappeared. However, during their discussions, the couple asked to meet the victims of South Africa's poverty, disease, and violence. Okay, good. Let's look at somebody else's pain for once. Also, before the trip, Meghan's spokesperson had come out and said that Meghan was going to wear cheap, sustainable clothes and leave her unique engagement ring at home. Okay, well, thank God she's finally deciding to wear something that would be appropriate to the trip, right? But why is she leaving her engagement ring at home? The people of Africa aren't under some kind of delusion that you don't own an engagement ring. It's not going to make them feel any better about their troubles just because you left your diamond engagement ring at home. They know you own it. So, what? Even that to me is just a lot of virtue signaling. They're not going to be offended because you are a married woman who's wearing an engagement ring, which may or may not be part of their culture. But what in the world? I mean, were the diamonds obtained in some kind of scandalous and sketchy way, regardless of the fact you wear it all the time anyway, they know you have it. So leaving it at home, what is that? You don't need to cosplay some poverty for these people. They know that you are a duchess married to a prince. The tour would be billed by the palace, and of course Sunshine Sachs got their hand in it, as an opportunity to rebuild the couple's image. They'd even agreed that Archie's face could be seen. Right, so up until this point, no one had ever gotten a peep at Archie, but now they were going to wear cheap clothes and show Archie's face, just like a commoner would do. Those same palace officials who organized the tour were unaware that in the weeks before their departure, the Sussexes had jettisoned their future in Britain. Focused on themselves, they decided to move to North America. They intended to use the South African tour as a branding operation, an opportunity to clarify their objectives. And boy, didn't they. Okay, what they proceed to do on this trip is so egregious that I am stunned that it got them any more followers or any more sympathy. It was the most outlandish play, the most pathetic and pitiable display of desperation. I mean, it was just so gross. Let's continue. Harry could not conceal his emotional turbulence as he traveled across South Africa. Speaking to an 18-year-old Christian student, Peter Oakey, he described how often he woke up and felt overwhelmed by the world's many problems. "Sometimes," he told Oakey, "it's hard to get out of bed in the mornings." Yeah, are you speaking about yourself or poor Peter? During a speech to parents of seriously ill children in a township, beneficiaries of the Well Child Awards charity, Harry choked back tears, describing his emotions about fatherhood and how it pulls at my heartstrings in a way I could never have understood until I had a child of my own. The crying prince, the father of a healthy child, was comforted on the stage by impoverished parents struggling daily with overwhelming difficulties. These are people with real problems. You've come to highlight their problems, gain aid, gain recognition for the charity. How dare you come out there and say, "Hold my emotional burdens. I've got everything in the whole world. I'm so rich, I don't know what to do with all my money. And I don't know how to feel about being a father. Hold me, hold me." Meanwhile, these people's kids have real, serious problems. And these poor parents are, trying to scrape together each day what's going to happen. They don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. But here Harry wants to throw himself on their neck and beg for sympathy. Give me a break. While Harry spilled out his suffering, Meghan threw herself into a personal campaign. With perfect poise, she played the part of the campaigning Hollywood celebrity. Literally standing on a tree stump, she decides to lecture everybody about who she is and, her beautiful spirit. Because she's got that lovely soul, the bananas said so. Standing on a tree stump, she told a group of women in Nyanga, South Africa's murder capital near Cape Town, "May I say that while I'm here with my husband as a member of the royal family, I want you to know that for me, I am here as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, and as a woman of color, and as your sister." At private meetings across the country with businesswomen, politicians, and academics, she advocated women's rights. At Johannesburg University, introducing herself as your sister, she told the audience, "When we empower girls hungry for education, we cultivate women who are emboldened to affect change within their communities and globally." Well, that's some gobbledygook garbage. Affect change to do what? You got any plans beyond that word? Let's affect change. Let's go do good. Okay, but what does that mean, right? You can't just say, let's go do good, let's affect change. Like, cast a vision. Don't just say a bunch of paltry words with absolutely no meaning whatsoever. And here's the thing. If Meghan had had this beautiful track record for charity, for coming in to impoverished areas and disenfranchised groups of people and tried to do what she could for them, then I would not really be as bothered by all of this, feminist language. I'm coming to you as a mother and as a wife and as a sister and all this. Because at the same, if she'd really been bothering to make ties and connect herself to these people in real, tangible ways, then I would have liked that language. Yes, she's playing all these same roles that you are. Maybe it looks different, but like, what's our common bond? That would be something that I'm not attacking her use of language, although I am attacking the fact that she never goes beyond, let's have change. But it's just that it's so disingenuous. She never does anything if there's not a camera there. And when has she ever rushed down to Africa in all her spare moments to create this bond with these other mothers, sisters, and wives? She doesn't care. She just says these things. And why is she climbing up on a tree stump to shove all of her rhetoric down people's throats? Give these poor people a break. Tom Bauer shares my frustration. He says, the missing link was explaining what women should be empowered to do. She offered no purpose for the power. She was also contradictory. After describing herself as a woman of color, she said in the same breath how she hoped that her marriage would not be seen through the prism of race. You brought it up. Left dangling in the air were fundamental problems. Unlike South Africa's radicals, she could not explain the particular challenges of a mixed-race woman in a Western society, nor did she question the values of Western society because those were her values. No one told Meghan her messages were confused. Instead, she was praised for the fluency of her speeches and the sincere excitement of her audiences. Her popularity grew, but her disgruntlement increased and was aimed at her staff. The officials, Harry felt, simply didn't like Meghan and would stop at nothing to make her life difficult. In turn, her staff believed that Meghan assumed that her success justified her entitlement. Always present amid the tension was the Sussexes' relationship with the media. Okay, well, let's just discuss about Meghan's little speeches and why they were heralded as just these glowing words of affirmation, and our ears have never been more delighted than at what she has to offer. But see, Bauer acts surprised that anybody would allow her to say these things and never question what she'd done. But we live in a time when was the last time you heard somebody give a rousing, thought-provoking, wonderful speech, like a politician? I'm not talking about like you were listening to a podcast and they had a guest that was incredible. I'm talking about when was the last time you heard somebody go out in a public forum as a politician or as a celebrity and say anything that meant anything? Of course, she gets up there and says the cliches and says the buzzwords and, throws around, I'm your sister of color. And then everyone's like, she's amazing, and the media just eats it up because they have not been trained to hear what is good, right, true, and beautiful. All they know is, oh, I heard the buzzword. Okay, thumbs up. They don't know what is good. So Meghan doesn't have to bring it because all she has to do is say the buzzwords. Now, let's have a little talk about the way they viewed the media, because it's so frustrating the way they dealt with the media on this tour. The few British journalists officially allowed to accompany the Sussexes during the tour felt ostracized. Acting on the Sussexes' orders, Sarah Latham denied the media normal, if limited, access to the couple. Okay, so it's not like the media was always getting, whatever scoop they wanted on whatever royal they were hanging with, right? It's always been fairly limited, but they weren't even given that. Nevertheless, anxious to placate the couple, even their sternest British critics suggested that the tour was a resounding success. Meghan, Harry, and Archie were hailed as heroes. Heroes? Like, what is this exaggerated, overinflated language? Heroes of what? The first photos of Archie were headlined as sensational. And yet, even though they're getting tons of positive feedback, people are loving this tour, every olive branch incensed Harry. The positive coverage of the tour exposed the double standard of this specific press pack. And he said that they had vilified Meghan almost daily for the past 9 months. So who cares what they have to say now? I mean, they're over here saying all these nice things about her, but why weren't you saying it 9 months ago? So I don't care what you have to say now. I don't care. Right, but then Harry, you don't want to be happy. Because all you've said, all you've done since Meghan entered the picture was cry and whine, try to get William dragged out there so he can also say everyone's being mean to Meghan. That's all we've heard about from this whole time. Now, finally, you're getting the coverage you wanted. They think you're wonderful. You're a hero. She's a hero. The baby's a hero. It's not enough. It's not going to make up for what you did. So don't even try now. Few realize that the Sussexes' assault on the media was a foretaste of a full frontal attack on the royal family. An ITV documentary, Harry and Meghan, An African Journey, was filmed by Tom Bradley during their tour. Okay, here we come to the top, to the, oh, y'all, it's so hot out here. I'm just gonna, here we come to the tour, right? The African tour. And all I can say is that I remember at the time watching this thinking, oh, things must be pretty rough for them, but also not really getting why they had to tell us all about it. You know, like, to me, it's just sort of like, maybe if it is hard, I'm sorry that it's been hard, but like, maybe you just don't need to go on and on about it. Maybe that's just something to have like a private talk with your counselor or something like that. But I remember, even totally not embroiled in everything that was going on, I remember also just thinking, this seems kind of like middle schooly, like coming out and trying to gather what friends you can to your side. It didn't seem like the actions of people well into adulthood. Anyway, Tom Bradley had decided to do a documentary about their time in Africa. Transmission was scheduled for a date 2 weeks after their return on 18th October. And this date was specific because it was going to coincide with the Cambridges tour to Pakistan. This was a really important tour. It was really important for British diplomacy, and it had state importance. It wasn't just like William and Catherine going out and, you know, to be seen, right? And it was also intended to showcase Kate's transformation during her maternity leave into a more glamorous, self-confident woman. Now, I don't recall Kate ever being sort of shabby, dumpy, uninteresting to look at. Like, some of the things that Tom Bauer says about Catherine, I don't think he's intending to be mean, but I think, like, he's trying to paint a picture like how she'd had this like enormous, you know, makeover at some point. And I'm just trying to like recall, when did she not look fabulous? Right? Because he said at the beginning of this book that when Meghan hit the scene, there was unfavorable comparisons between Catherine and Meghan. And he writes here that with a more youthful, lighter cut of hair and a new wardrobe, Kate had been helped by Virginia Chadwick Healy, a former Vogue editor and stylist, to match Meghan. And simultaneously, under Kate's influence, William had emerged as a calm heir, the people's prince, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But why did she, first of all, match Meghan? God forbid it, you know? And I just don't recall Catherine needing to go into hiding and then come out like a butterfly from a cocoon, right? So I don't know if that was like something that was in the working and I just didn't pay attention to it. But to me, Catherine's always been like beyond gorgeous. And she's always looked stunning. And like prior to Meghan ever entering the picture, I always thought she looked stunning. And when Meghan showed up, I thought she looked even more stunning next to Meghan. So I don't understand what he's on about, but whatever. Sometimes I think he's a little off when it comes to the fashion. Because he also said somewhere earlier in this book that Meghan had designed her dress to look like whoever married the Kennedy that died in the car crash. Or the plane crash. I can't remember her name now. But he said that Meghan had designed her dress to look like that. But they don't look anything alike. So I don't know where he got that tidbit of info. Okay, whatever. Tom Bauer knows a lot of other things. We can cut him some slack on the fashion. To focus the media's attention on the couple, Harry was asked to delay the broadcast of the ITV documentary. He refused. That was judged to be wanton sabotage of the Cambridges and the government. Yeah, it is. Why couldn't he have just delayed it? And then also there was another documentary that got smashed about, you know, Camilla, and nobody cared about that because they were too busy either watching the documentary about South Africa or catching what Catherine and William were up to. So nobody cared about Camilla. And by the way, how many documentaries are on TV about Camilla? I feel like every other chapter it's like, and then Charles wanted to put out this documentary about Camilla, but something got in the way. Something else aired at the same time. Nobody cared about Camilla. And it's like, okay, but this is only like the 15th documentary about her. Is there like a new one every month? In planning an African journey, Tom Bradley, a journalist sympathetic to the brothers, had planned to portray the Sussexes' experience of the continent's horrendous problems. He'd become friends with Harry while filming a documentary in Lesotho, after Harry left Eton. Accompanied by Bradley's film crew, Harry had posed in Angola with children who had lost their limbs to landmine explosions. Bradley had also filmed Meghan meeting girls who had survived wartime abuse, including multiple rapes. Whether those events matched Diana's homily, "Anywhere I see suffering, that is where I want to be, doing what I can," was debatable. Neither Meghan nor Harry chose, as she had done, to confront misery and console the homeless, sick and dying in shelters, hospitals, and hospices in Britain. More pertinently, in Bradley's film, the Sussexes chose not even to focus on South Africa's human tragedies. Well, how could they when they're suffering so much themselves? Their tragedies and traumas are real. Okay, I'm sorry about you limbless kids and you wartime abuse victims, but somebody tried to take a picture of my kid's face, so I'm fighting real battles over here. But on a serious note, it is really interesting that they would say to the palace, yes, we want to go to South Africa so that we can highlight the poverty-stricken, the poor, the destitute, the abused, the wartime victims. Then when they got down there, they used those people for photo ops and then never really did anything to help. Never highlighted any kind of charity or nonprofit, nothing. And I just think that it is, so much of what they do is sickening. But it's like Diana was looking to help the poor in every continent that she traveled to, right? That was her thing. She did it in England. She did it in Africa. She did it, in America. She visited hospitals. It's like anywhere she went, that was part of what she would do. She would go and see the sick and suffering. So people were just so much more willing to forgive Diana her faults because people saw her and related to her faults because they also wanted to champion all her victories. She was such a mixed individual, but because she seemed so genuine in so many things, people wanted to forgive her what she clearly struggled with. With Meghan, people are tired of being manipulated by her. They don't care about championing her because they see her as so often lying and hypocritical. And this is so classic Harry and Meghan. Let's use the people in Africa for a Photoshop. Oh, when did Meghan do this last, right? She's already done this. Remember with the wells that she went to and danced around with the kids under the well water and all this, but it was all just a photo op so she could wear a bunch of costumes with the cute backdrop of African kids? They're disgusting, these people. Utterly and completely disgusting. And they did not come to see about other people's suffering. They came to complain about their own. And the tone deafness of that. It seems like, did they just think, well, everyone's having a hard time, so our voice will be heard? Like, we can't complain on the slopes of, in the Swiss Alps. That would be too opulent, and people would, say, well, you're living a pretty good life. Maybe if I go to a backdrop where everyone's already having a hard time, then I can have my hard time too. Like, I don't understand what went into this. But that's the only conclusion I can come to. The Sussexes decided to use the African backdrop to express pain about their own plight. Anxious to display his vulnerabilities, Harry retold to have I been saying Bradley? I should have been saying Bradby, sorry. Anxious to display his vulnerability, Harry retold to Bradby how Diana's death had brought him repeatedly close to a breakdown. Oh gosh, this story again? Harry, is there ever a microphone that you don't rush to tell about how you had to walk behind your mom's coffin? We're sorry that happened to you, okay? We're sorry your mom died, all right? How many times can we say it? Of course, he wants to talk about the trauma of walking behind his mother's coffin, and the public reminded him of the bad stuff and a wound that festers. He continued, I think being part of this family, in this role, in this job, every single time I see a camera, every single time I hear a click, every single time I see a flash, it takes me straight back. So in that respect, it's a worse reminder of her life as opposed to the best. Okay, but you've just wrung me dry. I can't be sorry about it anymore. I've said I'm sorry 100 times. How much longer do we have to say we're sorry for you? We get it. It was hard, okay? Can we move on? What about that kid over there who doesn't even have his legs or arms? What about that kid? Okay, you want to talk about his trauma? All right, come on. But no, he's got to tell us this sad sob story again. I was only 11. Well, you're almost 13, but I know, but still, I had to do it. Well, your brother did too. I don't care, I was younger than him. Oh, Harry, please let it be over. Please let it be over. Then Harry made his bombshell revelation. His relationship with William was fractured. We're on different paths at the moment. You don't say. He's a success and you're a failure. Just why Harry exposed the family turmoil at that moment in South Africa was hard to explain, except that he had been persuaded by Meghan's example of ghosting her father, her family, and her lifelong friends. And it had been taught to him that all relationships were disposable. It's not working for you? Cast them out. Change your number. Doesn't matter. You don't need them. Find new friends. I mean, why did Harry think that this was the time? These two are like those people in your circle who you hate to see coming because you know as soon as they sit down, it's going to be all about their aches and pains, all about the tragic moments of their childhood, all about the worst thing that just happened to them. It's like every minor thing that has happened in these people's life, they just overinflate. They just completely blow up. It's like, let's all get out our magnifying glasses and study and have a little group chat about how terrible it's been for me. Let's all examine this from every angle, right? We all know people like that. This is who Harry and Meghan are. They're the people who everything is annoying to them. And if you walk through life looking for all the times when people are slighting you, you can manipulate a lot of things to believe that people are slighting you. But the thing is, the reality is most people are not even thinking about you. Most people could care less about you, in the best sense. It's just like they're living their life. They're going about their business. They're not trying to spurn you. But Harry and Meghan, every single little thing. How was somebody trying to slight me? How was somebody, trying to judge me? How was somebody trying to be mean to me? And then let me call an audience so that I can constantly complain about it. All right, so convinced that the audience also wanted to hear about her suffering, move over, Harry, it's my turn. Meghan provided the more explosive interview. Oh gosh, this famous bit. Standing in falling light outside a township of untold deprivation, she dramatically bit her lip while whispering to Bradby about how vulnerable she felt during her pregnancy. Now the pressure was hard, and the experience of just trying to be a good mother or trying to be a newlywed was made really challenging. Tears welled up. Meghan regretted that she had ignored the warning from American friends that the British tabloids would destroy her life. I was so naive. I'm American. We don't have that there. And I thought that, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. I didn't get it. In all fairness, I had no idea. Well, Meghan, do you not know about all of the tabloids that are lining up the register before you go to any supermarket in America? National Enquirer, Hello, In Touch, People. Like all of these magazines are just there to sell a story. And they are extravagant and they are wild and they are crazy. What are you talking about? We don't have tabloids. Why do you think that there's paparazzi in America then? To sell the pictures to each other? What are you talking about? And not to mention, TMZ, all of these online tabloids. It's like, what are you talking about? We don't have that. Do you think we're stupid? We know what's happening in America. Do you think the only people who are going to see this is people in England? And by the way, people in England are not on another planet. They know what's happening in America. Okay, they know about our tabloids. They have the internet. Okay, they read TMZ too. What are you talking about? We don't have that, so I was just really naive. You're naive, all right. Naive to believe that we're going to buy this bullshit. Bradby failed to ask the 38-year-old whether she'd never heard of National Enquirer's devastating exposés of famous Americans. Nor did he ask her to name one untrue tabloid story to justify her lament. Yeah, I wish he would have. What untrue story are you talking about? Instead, he nodded as she murmured, I tried. I really tried to adopt this sensibility of the British stiff upper lip, but I think that what that does internally is probably really damaging. I never thought this would be easy, but I thought it would be fair. And it isn't. But Meghan, would you like to enlighten us as to when you tried that British stiff upper lip? Because heretofore we haven't seen it, right? Like, what is this British stiff upper lip she's tried? At what point? Please enlighten us. Would it be fair, asked Bradby, to say that she was not really okay? Her life was really a struggle? Another tear fell as Meghan replied with a swipe at the royal family. Yes, and also thank you for asking because not many people have asked if I'm okay. But it's a very real thing to be going through behind the scenes. With a hint of more tears, she deftly added, it's not enough to just survive something, right? That's not the point of life. You've got to thrive. The audience was left to judge whether the eloquence had been rehearsed. We can only imagine it had been. The whole thing was such a sappy display. And this is not a hostage video where this is your last chance to get things out and you better, start blinking Morse code for help. But the way she acted was like, if I don't say this now, it's never going to be out and I'm going to be sucked into the vortex and you'll never hear from me again. It's like there was zero reason for her to bring any of this up in this documentary. Absolutely none, except for she is completely and totally self-absorbed, and any opportunity to talk about herself and any opportunity for it to be all about her was one she was going to take. Didn't matter that the backdrop was Africa, where people have real problems. It's been really hard for me as a new mother and a newlywed living with my in-laws. Asked about her future, Meghan replied, I don't know. You do just take each day as it comes. Oh, do you, Meghan? Because it seems to me like you've been planning your escape route these many years. Way since back before the wedding, you've been plotting and planning and scheming like a snake to get back to America. I just take one day at a time. Oh, do you take one day at a time just like you don't read the media? Close by, South Africans took each day as it came to survive hunger, disease, and violence. Meghan chose to say nothing about their lives. Bradby concluded that the Sussexes hoped to turn the relentless media interest in them into a positive force for good. Oh, the positive force for good. I mean, it's like Star Wars or something. What force are we talking about here? What happens with the force? That's what I want to know. What good is happening? He added, it became increasingly apparent to me the depths of their unhappiness, and that what I was recording was to be their exit from public life. After spending so much time with the Sussexes, the journalist would have been aware of Harry's sentiment. I did what any husband and father would do. I needed to get my family out of there. What sickening drama. And that's the thing. It's all such sickening drama. It's just like, give us a break. We can't take this anymore. I mean, I think the thing that's going to astound me in the coming pages is just how, despite the graphic nature of the over-dramatization of everything, despite the fact that it's so sickening and it's pitiful beg for our sympathy, people were more than willing to give sympathy. I can't understand why anybody would be willing to give sympathy to these people. They haven't earned it. Palace officials in London were now aware that Meghan's separation from the royal family was underway. Reports from their staff in South Africa confirmed the worst. Acknowledging the existence of a problem, a Kensington Palace spokesperson merely said that the Sussexes were in a fragile place. To escape the pressure, the Sussexes would fly to California for several weeks, but they returned for Christmas. That was the promise anyway, but as we'll go on to see, they're going to break that one too. So they've already not spent the summer at the Queen's invitation in Balmoral, and they've said they're going to spend Christmas with the royal family, but they're going to blow that off too.